We're good? Yeah. Hey, what's up? It's Ace. Um, I don't even know what to say at this point. Um, I was kind of trying to figure out like things on a personal level and how it relates to like the politics that I shape myself in. You know, a lot of media, in fact, most media, and reactionaries and stuff, they treat politics, like it's, I don't know. It's weird, it's like a religious person, right? They like create faith and stuff in order to like build a wall between themselves and the chaos that is life itself. Um, I don't know. It's pretty philosophical or whatever, but like life itself is chaotic and unpredictable, and I feel like when it comes to things like religion and being a part of a political team or fighting for a cause or whatever, um, they use those things in order to build that wall between themselves and the unpredictable nature of chaos X or Y or whatever. Um, and in the realm of politics, you see it all the time. There's always a new party or a new wave of politics or whatever that comes along and says that we're different, but is it? I mean, not really. Um, it's always been like, this side is like the new radical when the liberals started rising through the ranks. The Democrats and conservatives, or Republicans were like, oh man, how fucking crazy are these people? And so then the conservative party happened, and now it's MAGA and leftism or whatever. Um, all of these labels and new identities that we keep slapping on ourselves because maybe if we had a new title, things would change. um and I guess that ultimately is what American politics is. It's more about image and identity rather than actually doing anything. And I'm not singling out one party. Both parties do this. It doesn't matter what team you're on. Both parties play the role, of the other side is evil, therefore I'm going to fix it. And unfortunately it's super effective. That's marketing is everywhere in this country, and that's how these politicians and political parties sell themselves, is like a very convincing ad. And America, whether we want to admit it or not, we love ads. You start singing the JG Wentworth commercial, I guarantee you so many people will sing along to it, even though it's a commercial for fucking insurance. Or a cash loan. I mean, come on. Corporate ads are so super effective in this country that even the leftist party or whatever will still give into the madness that is consumerism every once in a while. And anyways, what was my point? Oh yeah, chaos. Yeah, so all these identities and stuff, they build a wall around us, you know. And look, I get it. I'm somebody that considers myself an individualist. Not like a toxic one where they're, like the MAGA people where I'm just completely self-absorbed and shit. Well, maybe a little bit, but not on a toxic level. Um, I get the point importance of identity. Um, But I feel like identity should be like an individual thing, right? When an identity becomes a collective, then it's not an identity anymore. It's a political party or or a cause, right? It's not an identity anymore, So like a gay person, um, you know, would have a sexuality, be attracted to men or women, whatever, right? That would be who they are. Um, Hate groups and stuff turn it into a movement where all the gay people become a collective, and all the bisexuals and all the alphabet people. um I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, the image of identity is powerful in this country, and I feel like it prevents us from actually getting anything done. Like, having a community is great. It's so important in order to work together and stuff. um And I do see some groups actually getting things accomplished, like Doctors Without Borders. I have huge respect for them because they don't just say that they're Doctors Without Borders and then sell fucking keychains and stuff. They actually go across borders and help people that don't have access to basic health care. So I have huge respect for them. But when it comes to, like, I don't know, like social issues and stuff, I have less trust for them, you know, just because, like, most of the time it just feels like a scam. Like, even uh, like the Black Lives Matter movement, right? They were all about protesting police brutality and getting rid of the bullshit qualified immunity, which I think is super important. Police are acting like fucking gangsters more than the fucking people that they accuse of being gangsters. Um, but at the same time, when you see the protests and you see all the marches, um, I start to ask myself how effective these protests are and what they're meant to accomplish. Because, like, all the Black Lives Matter protests seem to just disappear like that. And it's like, did the police get rid of qualified immunity? No. Are the police still beating the shit out of minorities? Yeah. Cops kill and beat the shit out of innocent people all the time. Police didn't get better training or anything. So it's like, you ask yourself, what was the point of the protest, right? Like, I know what it was about, but what was the point? Like, if you're going to hold a protest, that means you have a goal, a mission, something to accomplish. But, like, with all these recent protests, it just feels like nothing happens. Like the No King's Day protest, right? That protest pissed me off because, like, it was 2 days of standing in the street and dancing, and then nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. They waved their fingers in the air. How dare they? And then nothing. The protest ended. Ugh, fuck, I went on a tangent again. I guess my whole point is identity, is, I look at identity as like a double-edged sword kind of thing, On one hand, it's super important to have an identity, to shape your, perspective and everything, to build who you are. On the other hand, I also see how it can be used to uh, turn people into a collective, especially nowadays with the rise of MAGA. You know, I think the scariest thing, as somebody that's on the left, the scariest thing about MAGA to me is that these were once rational people. Like, even if they were conservative and we had differences of opinion on a lot of things, they were still average people. They went to work, They took home, took care of their families, went out to dinner, had, went to, church, whatever. These are totally normal things that people do. Um, and in the span of 10 years, it just completely just fucking got crazy, you know? Um, the whole point of, you know, being an individual, is that, you know, you can, they said it, it's all about liberty, right? It's kind of like I know I'm botching the pagan saying or whatever, but like it's the harm none, do what you will thing. You know, try to embody that. You know, I feel like as long as I'm not hurting anybody, I should be able to do whatever the fuck I want, right? If I decide one day that I wake up and I want to be a Christian and go to church and wear a fucking cross with the Lord's Prayer on it or whatever, I should have every right to do so without people trying to tell me that I'm some fucking, predator. At the same time, if I wanted to be a pagan or an atheist, I should have every right to do so without somebody telling me that I'm some fucking evil devil worshiper that wants to bring death to the entire human race. Right? Like I should have every right to do that. Um I don't know. It's this is more of just like ramblings, I kind of use this channel for like a diary kind of thing. Uh because things, they don't really make a whole lot of sense to me, at least on a social level. I try to approach things with logic 99% of the time. So like when it comes to like language and social issues and stuff, that stuff just doesn't really click with me that well. Um, but I do understand on certain levels, the importance of being your own person. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, you should be able to do whatever the fuck you want. A lot of religious people claim that they're being banned from reading. For example, a lot of people, Christians or whatever, are claiming that they're banned from reading the Bible in school. That's not true. You're allowed to read the Bible in school. You can read it in the classroom. You can read it in the fucking lunchroom. At recess, you can read the Bible. There's nothing wrong with reading the Bible in school. What's illegal is the teachers mandating the Bible and teaching it as if it were fact. That's the only thing that's banned. The teachers can't open the Bible and say this is what happened and this is history. That's not allowed because it's not history. It's a book written by man, superstitious men, superstitious, perverted, and greedy men from thousands of years ago. It cannot be taught as history or as accurate because it was based on faith, and faith is not real. It's self-empowerment. It's not reality. So you can't teach that in an institution built on education. But you can read the Bible in school all you want. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing is banning you from being a Christian in school. You can even have after school clubs where you read the Bible and talk about it. Nothing is banned from you, barring you from doing that. Um, and the reverse is also true as well. This type of chaos that's been created, and I mostly blame like, there's a lot of factors that go into it. There's a lack of education, there's corporate brainwashing. Um, but I feel like the two main things are, parents are like nihilistic parents and social media. This history professor, describes social media as a double-edged sword. And I think that's mostly true. But at this time, a point in time, social media has devolved into a corporate tool. Nothing on it is real anymore. Even the people, they all seem to just be personas rather than human beings. And so, um, and it always feels like they're trying to sell you a personality rather than just be themselves. It's always framed in, it always comes across as like, they're always trying, people talk to each other like they're always trying to sell something, right? Whether it's a persona or a cause or, even sexuality feels like it's being sold at the same time. You know, I'm gay, therefore, and it means this and this and this. Um, like it's everything is like overly descriptive, you know, as if like I'm trying to buy, you know, uh this person. And it's so disturbing to me. And you see that a lot mostly on social media. And and it's creepy too, because like when you're out in public or whatever, we've had barbecues the past several weeks. And the last one we had like almost 20 people here. And it was very quiet. um, like there was a few people like chitting with each other, but it was like really eerily quiet to me, you know. And I remember as a kid, when it was just like a pool thing with my grandparents, there would be like so much noise and people yelling and stuff. I don't know. I just miss the chaos of life. Everything, with social media and advertising and everything, people just become are just sound like products now. And the chaos of life is just completely has just feels like it's just been completely sterilized. You know, everything just kind of, whatever. Like even little disruptions are just like immediately flattened out. And it makes life very predictable and very, very, very fucking boring. That's part of the reason why I'm not religious. Um, I just feel like it makes are part of a political party or whatever. I don't like having those labels on me, just because like I feel it makes things absolute, and I don't like absolutism. I don't like things that end. You know, I like the idea of continuation and new understanding, or undiscovered things, right? There's always an extra depth to understand when it comes to people, I feel like. And when it comes to, these corporations and governments, um, they want to take that away from people. And that's probably one of my biggest things, is just you can see in real time the stripping of humanity from people. And this isn't party limited. Everybody does it. You know, even the blue MAGA types do it. Even if you leftists do. Pure dehumanization and then claiming that they're above dehumanization while dehumanizing the other side. And some people deserve it. Donald Trump and his administration deserve it. Absolutely. But I feel like most people don't, you know. I feel like when you start to dehumanize like an entire population of people, that's when they aren't human anymore. That's when they become animals. I don't know. I'm just rambling.